Joseph Labadie was a labor organizer and an anarchist from Paw Paw, Michigan, born in 1850. He got involved in anarchism by reading a newspaper called Labadie, which was published out of Boston by a man named Benjamin Tucker. And it was a very influential newspaper at that time in the 1870s and 1880s. And he wrote a letter to the publisher asking and talking about his ideals on anarchism and what that meant to him. And the letter was published in the newspaper, and they became lifelong friends after that. His views on anarchy were that it's more like individualism, you mind your business and I'll mind mine, that kind of thing. Nobody should be coerced into doing anything they want to do as long as you're not hurting anyone else. It's a unique collection that represents radical and social protest history of the United States and abroad. It's an international collection, so we don't stop at any borders for collecting, and we collect materials going back from the 19th century until the present. And it's heavily used, and it's very popular, and it's growing all the time. So I have a portrait of Joseph Labadie that was taken in Detroit when he was around 30 years old. This is a sample of one of his booklets that he bound himself. He did his own sewing on the bindery and this little hand machine that he had created, and he did his own printing in his own shop. And this is a sample of one of the pamphlets. Many of the pamphlets he made were bound with scraps of paper that he had laying around because he couldn't afford good binding for them. So here I have some sheet music from various time periods. This is the Internationale, which is a very famous radical song that is known throughout the world and published in many, many languages. And this is one of the editions of that sheet music. And we have many different kinds of sheet music. So this is an earlier one about unions. Much of our earlier collections are about labor unions. Joe Labadie was not a member of the IWW, but the very first curator of the Labadie collection was an IWW member. Her name was Agnes Inglis, and she became the first curator in the early 1920s. Because of her work, we have one of the best collections of IWW literature in the world. We have this poster, which I really like a lot. The capitalist's heart is in his pocketbook, and he uses the club overuse so he can wear diamonds. By organizing right, we can give him a spade by which to earn an honest living. We have Joe Hill's ashes. This is actually the envelope that his ashes were distributed in to all the different union locals around the world. So his body was cremated, and the ashes split up. The letter from Big Bill Haywood came around with this envelope of ashes saying, any local can distribute these ashes, but please write us and tell us what you did with them so we have a record of it. We have an interesting collection called Street versus New York, and it was a court case of Sidney Street, who was convicted of desecration of the flag in 1966, when James Meredith had gone to Mississippi to actively participate in the civil rights struggle down there. He was murdered. Sidney Street was very, very upset by this, and in New York City, he got word that this happened. Everybody knew about it. There was a big protest, demonstrations all over the place. He burned a flag in protest, saying that if that could happen to James Meredith, that we don't need a flag in this country. So he was arrested and convicted of desecration of the flag. Eventually the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it fell on his side then as a First Amendment case in his favor. So he had freedom of speech to burn the flag. So part of the collection includes the burned flag, remnants of the burned flag that were used as evidence against him in the case. And you can see that this is a court document behind it. This is a flyer protesting Nixon and the Vietnam War that was held at the University of California at Berkeley. And it says, demonstration to protest the racist and fascist attitude of Tricky Dick Nixon gang. And also handwritten on the sides, Free Huey. Huey Newton was the head of the Black Panther Party at that time, who was in prison. And Free Bobby was Bobby Seale, the Minister of Defense for the Black Panther Party. Bobby was arrested several times for various things, and one of the things that he was famous for was the Chicago 8 trial. During the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in 1968, there was a massive protest. 8 people who were leaders of different organizations at that time were rounded up and convicted or put on trial for conspiracy to overthrow the government. And Bobby Seale was one of those people. And one of my favorite things is this flyer here, set Bobby free by letting him speak, because he tried to act as his own attorney during the trial, and the Judge Julius Hoffman, would not allow him to act as his own attorney. So Bobby kept trying to speak on his own behalf, refusing legal help, and they actually eventually bound and gagged him in the court to a chair. They tied his hands and they taped his mouth, and he had to sit there. And it was an incredible scene of oppression and racism in that courtroom. So eventually he was separated from that trial, and he had his own trial eventually, but he was part of the original 8. We do have quite a bit of material, growing collection on the Occupy movement. This is called Occupied Media. This is the organization that publishes these. It's the Free Association, Up We Rise, Reflections on Global Rebellion, from the Occupied Media pamphlet series. So these are brand new that we just received in a couple weeks ago. And then we have this one. This one is Taking the Brooklyn Bridge, Stuart Leonard, and this is a publication in English and Spanish. There's never going to be an end to social protest, so there's never going to be an end to the amount of materials that are coming in and being preserved and being made accessible to the world for free. So that's what I want people to know, is that we're preserving this for everybody to use, and it's free and it's open to the public.